OMG, you guys, I bought all the decks. I was not expecting to ever do another deck haul type of video. I've been trying to be very conscientious consumer. Honestly, over the last couple of months, I don't know if I had sort of lost my tarot mojo or just was feeling the financial pinch, but at the beginning of January, I came down with a terrible cold and was voiceless. Honest to gosh, could not speak a word. Bad laryngitis for over 7 days. And in that time of not talking to anyone, not speaking, not even whispering to my cats, I went on a buying binge. And I know that that's a bad thing. I know that I shouldn't have done it. I know that it is not a healthy way to deal with problems. But here we are. The other part of all of this was that I canceled my Amazon Prime several weeks ago. Like it was due to resubscribe at the end of November or whatever, and I did not renew Amazon Prime. I am trying to get away from using Amazon. It is a personal decision. It does not my opinion does not reflect on anyone else. It is just something that I want to do for myself. I know that there are lots of smaller businesses that are struggling because Amazon provides this service to people at the expense of labor laws and, you know, paying people fair wages. And I won't preach. These are my personal decisions, but I just wanted to sort of explain how I ended up where I am. And one of the things that I wanted to do was make a bigger effort to order, if I wanted a deck, to order directly from the publisher or from a small bookstore. And one of the things I discovered was thrift books. If you've never used them, I find that they're a very good option. The pricing is very similar. The one thing that I did discover is that many of our favorite deck publishers sell their decks directly on Amazon at a reduced price compared to what they sell them for on their own website. So if you go to US Games or Llewellyn, the prices listed for the decks are full price, where on Amazon they are often reduced by about 20%. So that was a bit frustrating. It wasn't until I discovered thrift books, which also offers a similar discount, did I sort of find a solution or alternative to using Amazon. Thrift books, it takes a little bit longer to get the decks. They don't arrive in 2 days or anything like that. It took about a week or so to get these. In that time, I was able to regain use of my voice. But a couple of these decks I did buy directly from the publisher. I think I got the Hay House decks straight from their website. They did have like if you subscribe to our newsletter, get 20% off discount. I think most of the other decks came directly from thrift books. If anyone has a recommendation of a online tarot deck online shop that you would recommend, I would love recommendations. While I like using thrift books, it is again another big big seller. They do sell a lot of secondhand and used books, and I think they started off doing like textbooks. So they're definitely not in the same league as Amazon, but they're still like a big guy. And I would love to be able to support a small tarot or metaphysical or witchy shop. Rather than, that might offer a wide variety of your sort of traditional mass market, as well as maybe some indie decks. So anyway, yeah, should we dive in? I'm sorry for the huge, verbal diarrhea, but I wanted to sort of couch my excessive spending. Now, keeping in mind, I did not do a similar type of thing for December because of the holidays. I was very cautious with my money. I am independently employed, so this was very much a I had a good month in December, and so it felt like not a bad thing to treat myself a little bit, and not to mention I couldn't speak, and you know, sometimes retail therapy is just retail therapy. So anyway, let's get started. First up, little tiny baby. I wanted to get a copy of the Steampunk Tarot mini deck, and I had been wanting to get it for a while, but because I already own the full-size deck, it was not something that was like a big deal. And since I was already placing an order, I was like, okay, fine, I will finally order it. This is a sizing comparison, if you guys are curious. This is sort of your classic, I think this is US Games mini deck. Is this US Games? No, this is Llewellyn. This is Llewellyn's little tiny baby deck. It's US Games, whose mini decks are not quite so stupid small. But I wanted to use this in my, I'm doing the whole gamify your life project, and I wanted to be able to use these in my planner, a la Dawn Michelle, as sort of like a little daily, like little weekly pull kind of thing. So I will move these out of the way. These are just like microscopic little cards. I only have a couple of these like teeny tiny Llewellyn decks. They are just so small. But this is a deck that I really enjoy, and I have definitely been leaning into a bit more of my personal preference for sort of sci-fi fantasy type of things, and just being like, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, these are the kinds of things I like. These are so beautifully illustrated. Because I already have the full size, I do have the Barbara Moore guidebook that goes with this. So if I want to deep dive a little more, and I definitely feel like with some of these like mini Llewellyn decks, unless it is a 100% clone of an RWS deck, I would recommend buying the full-sized edition first and then getting the smaller one as needed. I do wish that since these were so small that they would have gotten rid of the black borders and just done a full bleed, just so there's a little bit more image, but I think they just shrunk the art down and published it. So, oh, what the heck happened here? Got them all flipped over. But anyway, so this is the Steampunk Tarot mini edition. I love the artwork on this deck. I just think it's fun and just really good. The artwork was by Ali Fell, and I don't know if Ali's done any other decks. I should look into it. If you know, please leave a note in the comments. I would love to know, because I really do like the artwork. So that is the teeny tiny. So I am going to follow it up with the Oran's Animal Tarot. I have been waiting and waiting for the pocket edition to come out. This is a deck by Ambi-Sun. It was a rock pool. It's listed at $20. It is in a tin, very similar to like your classic US Games mini decks. It does have a guidebook. I think I've heard a couple of other people talk about the text in this being quite small, but I find it fairly easy to read. They kept it very clean and plain. It's just black text on white paper, which is absolutely fine. Particularly for a mini deck, I don't need to have, you know, an illustration of the cards, which are essentially the same size as the book. You know, this, the guide to book doesn't have to be chunky to be good, if you know what I mean. So anyway, so this is the teeny tiny. I did not previously own the Oran's Animal. This was a deck that I really wanted to get, but I did want to get the smaller deck just because I have tiny hands and I like small decks. And so I'm very excited to start working with this. I really like animal decks, so I was definitely looking forward to kind of getting to know it. I wanted to pull out your classic mini US Games deck to compare it in size, and it is very, very similar. It's about a eighth of an inch taller, but the same width. And this, where the US Games is like that semi-gloss, this is a matte paper stock, but not a soft touch, what do they call it, rose petal this is just a matte finish paper. And I'm really looking forward to working with this. So let me get this out of the way. And we'll just put a few of these out. So I'm really looking forward to sort of working through this deck. This may be my February deck of the month, just to sort of work with these animals and kind of get into it. I should probably do some deck pairings and see what I find that'll work with this. But there are bugs in here for people who are not bug inclined. But yeah, this size deck is one of my most perfect sizes. This and the Tarot de Carlotides. That's my absolute favorite for a tarot deck size. This is sort of would be second. And I know a lot of people have talked about that these are very dark and hard to see, but I find them very dreamy and good for this sort of darker half of the year. So I think that this will be a great deck to work with. So anyway, that is the Oran's Animal Tarot. I have not tried to shuffle it yet. I will try that later, but I think it feels, yeah, I feel like that'll be a pretty good shuffle. And while I know a lot of people don't like the shiny edges, these are, these foil edges do not seem to be super pokey on the hand, but also because this deck is so small, I don't think that that would be a huge issue. I do have to say that I like that the lid is hinged. I think that that's just a nice touch. So anyway, next up we have the Egyptian Art Nouveau Tarot. Now this is another deck that I have waffled back and forth about purchasing, and then I finally was just like, nope, now is the time. So this is another Lo Scarabeo deck. The artwork is Julia Massaglia. I am not sure if this is the same artist that did the Golden Art Nouveau. It is. Would you look at that? So if you are a fan of the Golden Art Nouveau deck, then you might quite appreciate the Egyptian Art Nouveau, since it is the same artist. I had a feeling, but I don't think I checked before I purchased it. So there's that. Because this is a Lo Scarabeo deck, it is the standard tuck box with your standard little white book that's going to have the multiple languages, short entries. And while the Golden Art Nouveau does have gold foiling on it, this deck does not. The Egyptian does not. I just recently read, oh God, look at those card backs. I love it. The scarab beetles are so perfect. So I've been reading some fiction that takes place in and around like Egypt in the, you know, the, I guess for lack of a better word, like the colonial days when people were unearthing tombs and things like that. And so I've just sort of kind of had an interest in a bit more of the sort of Egyptian culture, history, you know, so it's just a really pretty deck. It is, again, like a lot of Lo Scarabeo decks, similar to your classic RWS, but with a twist. So there are slight variations, slight differences, but overall, I think it's okay that there are, you know, they don't have words. This is how they're getting around the language issue. Just the number, and pretty quickly you can look at the image and sort of determine. I like that Temperance looks like an older woman. So the Devil, the Tower. So I mean, it's because the images have a sort of classic Rider-Waite-Smith vibe, but through the lens of sort of Egyptian myth and artwork with that Art Nouveau added on, which is about the time period that a lot of the archaeological discoveries were made in Egypt anyway. Like they unearthed a lot of tombs in and around the 20s, which is why artistically there's a lot of elements in the artwork of the Art Nouveau, like that whole like late 1800s up through like the Art Deco was all influenced by the discoveries in Egypt, and everybody sort of had a, you know, Egyptian craze. So it seems very fitting to sort of combine the aesthetic. And I think these are beautiful, and I think this will be a fun way to sort of learn a little bit more about the Egyptian gods and goddesses. I know a little bit, but not a ton. And I just think this is a freaking beautiful deck. So yeah, so that is the Egyptian Art Nouveau from Los Scarabeo. They've like just these card backs, just for the card backs alone. And then next up, I'm going to do these together. I got the Amanda Lynn Aisling Inner Child Oracle. I had seen several YouTubers recently talking about the Inner Child Oracle, which has been around, I think, for a while. These are both Hay House decks. This one is new. The Cosmic Crossroads is a new deck, but I think as a result, people have sort of rediscovered the Inner Child Oracle, which, let me see if there's a date in here. No, this was 2023, so this was just last year. You do get a guidebook with a playfulness exercise as well as a journaling prompt for each card, as well as just sort of a short description. And I've heard a lot of people say like that they find the title of this deck a little misleading, that it doesn't necessarily feel childish or childlike. And then this is the new, which just came out probably this past month, the Cosmic Crossroads. They both, I mean, I like that they're aesthetically, there's a real cohesion. This one also has a little guidebook. And each card has very similar. This one has a ritual with an affirmation rather than like a journaling prompt like the Inner Child does. So feels a little different, but I think they're both really unique decks. So classic Hay House cardstock, matte finish, if you're curious. And I'll just flip through these together so that we're not here for a month. So artistically, these are both sort of photo montage collages. Aesthetically, you know, there's some elements that are added in that feel like illustrated, like these little droplets. But the color palette is very similar. I think these decks could definitely be used together if you wanted to pair two Oracle decks. I think this, the Inner Child, I think one of the reasons people really like this deck, and I have not worked with either of these yet, this really is my first impressions kind of vibe. This deck has both your keyword and a phrase, where this one just has a keyword. So I think a lot of people have sort of leaned back into this deck specifically because it's one of those decks where you don't necessarily have to get into the guidebook if you don't want to. This one, I don't know that you do. One keyword seems to be enough. This is so beautiful. I really like these collages. I wasn't sure how I would feel about them, but I really do like them. And I think that this is probably a really good time to bring in a couple of other decks that I purchased, because I feel like there's a real aesthetic trend going on. So we're just going to leave these out here. And we're going to pull in the Tarot of the Cosmic Seed, which is a... Why can I never remember the publishers of anything? Oh, this is a Wiser Books. This was originally Lelania Simone was originally an indie release and now is a mass market release. It is in your classic 2-part box. There is a guidebook. We can flip through it real quick if you guys would like to see it. Just about a half a page for each card. Feels like just a little bit more for the majors. But yeah, just a plain black and white guidebook. I am leaning more and more in some cases to some of these simpler guidebooks. I do enjoy a more involved guidebook, but if a deck feels fairly straightforward, I don't know that it is entirely necessary. I think it's nice to just have a quick, keyword, something that can be kept with the deck. Because sometimes, if you can figure it out, I don't need a big lengthy. I do like to hear why an artist picked particular artwork or if there was a special meaning to something, but honestly, it's like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It just depends. So this deck does have blue foiled edges and a blue foil design on the card back. But the thing that I discovered was that I do feel like these all sit really nicely together. That's a very similar art style. Like even how the keywords or the tags are handled feel really nice. It's Terra the Cosmic Seed, Cosmic Crossroads. I feel like the title sort of gives it away, like as a deck pairing, and then your inner child. So, and this was a deck, the Cosmic Seed, Terra of the Cosmic Seed was a deck that I had considered for years purchasing, but was just hesitant about investing the amount of money that an indie deck would have. So I kind of put it off, and then I heard that it would be released as a mass market deck and was like, okay, now is the time to do it. And I feel so bad that I didn't buy it sooner because I do think that I really like the deck, and I wish that I had given the indie creator her just rewards. But I'm hoping that Wiser Books will pay her well and keep working with her so that she can make more beautiful decks and be paid appropriately. So I'm sorry that I didn't do it sooner, but y'all understand, right? Sometimes, it's like paying $75 for a deck. Just, when you're not sure if you're going to love it, it's a little bit hard pill to swallow. So, I think I have a couple more decks that may sort of fit in this same vibe. I'm not entirely sure. I bought the Dream Song Oracle, which is another Angie Sullins deck. This time the artwork is by Marta Orlowska. I'm sorry, Marta, if I totally butchered that. This is another US Games deck. As has been the case with all of Angie Sullins, it comes with a little baggie that I can never decide whether or not to get rid of or not because I don't use them. It's in the tuck box with the slightly larger guidebook, and then the cards are sort of standard tarot-ish size. The big news on this deck is that this is the first time I've seen an Angie Sullins deck, Oracle deck, that did not have super glossy cardstock. So that's exciting, right? The guidebook has sort of a page of information plus a full color of the card. Very similar, I think, to a lot of the other decks from her, this sort of series that they've been doing. These card backs remind me of Jessica Rue's, what is that called? Her animal oracle. You know what I am talking about. I'll put it here. So anyway, that's a little annoying, but it is what it is. So this one I think might not necessarily fit with this vibe. So maybe we're going to talk about this separately. But yeah, we'll pause here. That was the Tarot of the Cosmic Seed, the Inner Child Oracle, let me know if you guys want longer videos about any of these decks, and I would be happy to do it. I often feel like everyone has seen so many walkthroughs of decks that I don't want to like belabor the point, but I also don't want to like neglect talking about any decks. So this one I feel might go better with these two. I picked up the Botanical Dreams Oracle, which is a Katrin Weltstein deck that is the same artist who did the Tarot of Mystical Moments and the Oracle of Mystical Moments. And so I will pull both of those out in a second so we can do a little quick compare. And then this new deck from, it says Sacred Scribe Publishing, but I think I got this through maybe Hay House. I'm not sure. I don't remember. And this is called First Aid for Broken Hearts Tarot. The artist and writer is Nonara. And very much, I think my instinct was that this was very similar to Katrin Weltstein's artwork when I first saw it. So I was definitely excited to see it. It is an oracle-sized tarot deck. And at the bottom of each card is included a short description of each card. That's one of those things where I can take it or leave it, but I do think it's interesting. And then this is the Botanical Dreams Oracle. And I feel like I'm getting very muddied here because I have so many decks going at one time, but I hope you just let me know. I'll add more, take some out. This has one page for each card with an image of the card and a little short description, and then like a little takeaway message at the bottom of each. It is full color. It is Katrin Weltstein's artwork, which is lovely, and the rest of the text is Lynn Arojo. I'm sorry if I butchered that. I'm really trying. So the thing with Katrin Weltstein's decks, and I'm just going to pause briefly here to discuss this. I absolutely love her tarot deck. My biggest complaint is the shiny as all get out cardstock that the original deck is on. It is super, super shiny. It had gold or silver edging, which I buffed off a lot of it because it was the kind of edging that hurt your fingers when you tried to shuffle it. And these cards are super, super stiff. And it is the same size, so it is a larger than normal. So we're going to use this Lo Scarabeo as an example of like your standard tarot deck. So it's a good 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch wider, and a good 1/4 to 1/2 inch taller. So that was the original. This is the Tarot of Mystical Moments, which I piled on top. So you can tell just by looking that the new deck, the Botanical Dreams, has a lot. It's just it's the same cardstock that I think they're using, or similar cardstock to the Dream Song, which this is US Games. This is Hay House. So I think it is. Or is this all US Games? Good grief. Nope, it's all US Games. It's a very similar cardstock. I actually think that this is a little bit shinier. Nah, I think it's the same cardstock. So when we compare, I'm going to pull these aside for a second. We'll go back to these and we'll kind of do a Katrin Weltstein deep dive. So of the three, size-wise, the Oracle of Mystical Moments is my favorite. It's the one that's actually more tarot-sized. We'll pull the Lo Scarabeo back. It's a little bit taller, but it's closer in size. I know that for the most part, the Tarot of Mystical Moments was original artwork created for the tarot deck, where I think the Oracle was some of Katrin's existing paintings that were sort of reinterpreted to become an Oracle deck. I am not sure where The Botanical Dreams Oracle falls in all of that, but I thought it would just be nice to sort of show them all together. They would certainly work well together if you liked to pair decks of the same creator together. I mean, these are pretty great together. So, oh, these are the card backs, by the way. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. They're similar, but a little bit more, like this one is so tone on tone that I think you sort of lose the detail. I think you can see the design much better on this one. But yeah, so the Oracle of Mystical Moments is sort of a green back. The Botanical Dreams is this blue, and then the original Mystical Moments Tarot is sort of this beige, leaning ever so slightly to green. So I confess that as much as I was inclined to purchase the mini edition of the Tarot of Mystical Moments, when I heard that it was the same glossy cardstock as the tarot deck, I decided not to do it. So as much as I prefer a smaller deck, and I love this deck so much, I was not inclined to get the additional deck. So again, we're sort of looking specifically at the Botanical Dreams. I do think it's very interesting. This one very much focuses specifically on plants. What has confused me a little bit is that while there is an organic floral element in each one, or a botanical element, I haven't quite worked through the connection between the keywords and the artwork. So, oh wow, that looks pretty cool. So I've never really put all of Katrin's decks together before. Like I never was somebody who used the Oracle and the Tarot together, just because I felt like it was a lot of artwork, but I kind of like it. It's quite lovely. So she's a very Alice in Wonderland kind of vibe. There's something, I really like them, and I think I'm okay as I'm flipping through these, even if this was some of her existing artwork that someone just sort of put keywords to. I think I'm okay with it. I would love if all of these decks were the same size. Please make an edition like this, please. Like, I know that would require borders or changing something, but I like the paper stock better too. I'm just a big baby. Make the deck I want. Thank you very much. So I love this little sea witch baby. So cool. So anyway, that is a brief glance at various Katrin Weltstein decks. I'm going to pause here and bring these other decks out. Okay, I said I was going to put these decks away, but I lied. So this is the new First Aid for the Broken Hearts Tarot that I actually kind of want to look at with Katrin Weltstein's Botanical Dreams Oracle, as well as her Tarot of Mystical Moments, because I do feel like this artwork is quite similar, but with a slightly different feel. So these are the card backs on these. We'll just flip that back over just so you see. But there's more of a simplicity, I think, to the artwork in Nonara's First Aid for Broken Hearts Tarot. The paper stock is matte, verging on soft touch, which is probably the only thing that bothers me really about it at this point. I don't mind the key phrases at the bottom. They are small and subtle enough that if you need them, they're there for you, but not overwhelming. Do you love that these poppies both came up here? It's really, I think if this is a great pairing, and again, while I do like the idea of pairing Katrin Weltstein's decks together, I think pairing the Botanical Dreams with the First Aid for Broken Hearts would be a very cool combo as well. Oh, that's beautiful. So you know, as much as I said, I felt like there was a real similarity. These have a simpler, more like children's storybook, like a mystical storybook vibe, where these remind me more of sort of paintings, like classical paintings. This feels a little bit more modern in terms of the styling of the illustrations. So I do think that it has the potential to stand on its own. I'm going to go ahead and take the Tarot of Mystical Moments out while we look at these two. So, yeah, there's a wonderful these are great together too. There's a wonderful fantasy vibe, and maybe it has to do as much with the paper stock as well as the illustration style. What is up with his leg? Is it that he does not have a foot, or has it become part of the tree? That's very peculiar. I'll have to look in the guidebook about that. But interesting. So that is just a quick look. I realize I'm going to flip ahead a little bit and get into some of the minors here. Does she have a hand puppet of a swan? It's very peculiar. I'm having a moment where I'm wondering if there's some AI in this artwork because it is a little peculiar, but because the box says it was illustrated by Nonara, I'm going to assume that it's just that these were design decisions and not oopsies from an AI generation, like that she intended there to be these like sort of unusual elements. So I'm going to flip a little further ahead. We'll look, that was the cups. So here's the swords. Interesting. Raven heads. So I can do a full walkthrough of this if you guys are interested. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this deck, but that is the First Aid for Broken Hearts. It does have these matching, the edging matches the card backs. And then this is the is it Oracle or Botanical Dreams Oracle. So I will go back now to Angie Sellen's Dream Song Oracle. We'll look at that real quick. I realize I've kind of been all over the place, and I apologize about that. This one, like I said, the card backs I really like. This feels super storybooky. The cards are a little slippery, but they are a matte, like semi-gloss finish, which I much prefer over the super glossy that they've been using on some of Angie Sellen's other decks. Learn from the bees. I am looking forward to doing some deck pairings with this because this is lovely. The artwork is quite lovely. This is Marta Orlowska. Hopefully I said that okay. Crafter Focus. So cool. So there's some sort of image manipulation, but also some more illustrative elements. Some moments where it does feel a lot like Jessica Rue. Just really pretty. I really like this. I'm excited to work with this one. It does have gold edging. Let me know if you have this deck or any of the other Angie Sellen's, if I'm missing some that are maybe less shiny paper. Okay, last deck. So this was another deck that has been the kind of thing where I keep saying, I'm going to buy it. No, I'm not. I'm going to buy it. No, I'm not. I'm going to buy it. No, I'm not. And I finally was like, screw it. I'm buying it. So this is the Siren Song. It is a combo deck with Carrie Paris, Tony Savory, and Tina Hart. It is a combination Lenormand and Kipper deck. So in the box is a Lenormand deck and a Kipper deck. I was interested in it specifically for the Lenormand deck because I have been doing some Lenormand study work. And I love vintage collage, as you may have guessed from looking at everything else. This is the only one I forgot to take the plastic off. I tried to do all that off camera. I thought I got it all. I know nothing about Kipper, so, you know, potentially the Kipper deck will just stay in the box for a while, and maybe one day I will get a wild hair and to play with it. But I was really interested in the Lenormand deck, and the cards have an L on the back for Lenormand and a K for Kipper. And these are all sort of collage based with a sea creature siren song theme and vintage artwork. It is definitely like my jam, my vibe, you know. And I think like a lot of people who want to work more with Lenormand, finding that deck that you get the quickest read to what the characters, like what the icon is on each character, on each card, is really sort of like, once you find that one deck, you're kind of done looking. And I had looked at some of sort of the classic vintage decks and debated whether or not to just work with those, stick with those. But the more I thought about it, I think I watched a couple videos of other people who had this deck and was like, I feel like these cards are fairly quick read for me. In some instances, there are multiple cards that you can choose from for specific cards. So like there were 2 different child cards. For the dog card, there's a cat or a dog. So it's that sort of pet companion thing. You can pick which one you want to use for your readings, which I like as a cat person. Sometimes that seems appropriate. Although I get that dogs are great companions as well. So the crossroads is nice. It says one way or the other. So I can certainly do a flip through with this, the Lenormand, with like a traditional Lenormand deck, because I do have a couple, like the Grand Tableau deck. But on the topic of cardstock here, this is a matte cardstock. Since these cards are smaller, there shouldn't be any issues with shuffling. And again, like I said, I know nothing about Kipper, but I decided to go ahead and get this, even though it was sort of a one or the other. I'm fascinated by the fact that they decided to do these 2 together, because I do feel like Kipper is not as popular as Lenormand, at least at this point in time. So I'm a little surprised that they would combine the decks. Maybe it's an effort to get people more interested in learning Kipper. Does anybody out there read Kipper? Like, should I learn it? Should I take a chance? So here are all of the, like, I'm not going to pile them all up. You guys saw the screenshot. We flipped through all of these. It was a lot of decks, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I realized it was super lengthy. I might try to cut it down a little bit. But yeah, so January deck haul. Who knew? Thanks so much for watching. Please leave comments, notes, like, subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you again soon about things I do with tarot and oracle cards. So thanks so much.